Yeah, Friana, we're ready.
Thank you. We need a little music for that. I think that a bit of music would be the right thing there. Okay, who's taking on now?
Okay, Friana, thank you. Thank you for that new beginning. So, so welcome everyone. And it's time for the book club again. And we have a lovely book today and a very good presenter. So we have Sunita Shetty, who is going to tell us about The Storied Life of AJ Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. So Sunita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Moini. Thank you for this.
By the way, 1 minute. I would like everyone now to shut their
video screens and mute.
Video screen also, if you shut, would be good. But please shut your sound definitely. Okay, I'm also shutting my sound.
Yeah, definitely mute yourselves, but I'm happy to have videos on if you want to keep it on, because I don't have a presentation. You'll just hear me speak. That's all. Okay, so The Storied Life of AJ Fikry. This one, it's a delightful book. It's engaging. It's funny. It's sentimental. It has a touch of suspense, but it's a book that's not over the top. Okay, and as the Washington Post says, and let me quote for you, it says it's marvelously optimistic about the future of books and bookstores and people who love both. And I can't think of a better book to present to this group of people who really are the kinds who love books and bookstores, and and I think y'all will really enjoy reading this book and how she writes it and what she brings out in this book. So let me start with the characters in this book. There are very few characters. It's not a complicated story at all, but the characters are beautifully written. We start with, of course, the main character, the central character of the book, who's AJ Fikry. AJ Fikry is a 39-year-old widower. He's central to the book. He's cranky. He drinks too much. He has a bookstore which is failing, and don't even get him started to talk on the state of publishing. Okay, so that's AJ Fikry for you. He started to do his PhD in Princeton and eventually dropped out to marry his sweetheart, Nick, and both of them come to this island. Nick was doing her PhD in Princeton as well, and both come to the island to start a bookstore because they love books and they believe that a bookstore is where they can build this community of people. And so that's AJ Fikry for you, and we'll come to him a little bit more. There's Nick, his wife, and like I mentioned, Nick is from Princeton. Nick has, there's very little of her in the book. She had cancer and she dies, right? So she's already dead in the book. A little bit of the past is given. That's Nick for you. Then there's Amelia. And Amelia is an interesting character. Amelia is a sales rep for Nightly Publishing. Amelia comes to, as a sales rep for a publishing house, she comes to different bookstores and she has to tell them about how books are, which are the books that they should, publishers should be buying, bookstores should be buying, which are the nice ones. They have a summer list and they have a winter list, and, and she's the one who has to do that. And she comes for the first time and she's introduced, the first chapter of the book sort of introduces us to Amelia. She's a little quirky in how she dresses, and the kinds of shoes she wears and the clothes she wears and the funny earrings that she has on. She's youngish. She's young. Let me say that. Let me not even say youngish. She's young and loves her job, loves to read, and she's there in the book. And we'll come to her in just a bit as well. And then there's little Maya. Maya is a baby, and she's there in the book. There's Ismay. Ismay is AJ Fikry's sister-in-law. So that's Nick's sister who lives in the same island. She and her husband, Daniel Parish. Daniel is a writer and, suave, good looking, has had one bestseller novel that's there. His other books are not doing so well, but he's the kind of guy who can walk into a room and, and the ladies will give him a second look. And he's just such a good talker, smooth talker, and he'll flirt with all the women. He's that kind of a guy. And, he's had one success. He's had only one success, but he's still got that swag about him. And last but not the least is the police inspector, is the police chief called Lambes, and Lambes plays a very central part in this book. Okay, so let's get started. The setting of the book is in a little island, a little bit in the United States. It's like a Martha's Vineyard. It's an island called Alice Island. It's not easy to get to, as you can imagine. You have to drive, then you have to take a ferry and then get there. But the island also talks about and is also there to represent how isolated AJ Fikry is, right? He's isolated physically, he's isolated geographically, he's isolated intellectually. His wife has died, and he's miserable. He takes to reading more because he just doesn't want to engage with people. And, for all of us in this group, we know that reading really helps us engage with people, but that's not the reason why AJ Fikry does that. Okay, so let's come to chapter 1. In chapter 1, we're introduced to Amelia and AJ Fikry. Amelia, like I said, was a sales rep. She comes for the first time to Island Books to be able to, present the winter list of publishing that is there. The previous rep that was there, Harvey, has passed away. She comes in, she meets AJ Fikry, who is just a grump. Okay, he's curt with her. He doesn't recognize her as the rep. He wants to know where's Harvey. He's upset that Harvey is not there. So, he doesn't give her the time of day at all. And she's really trying. Amelia is really trying to see how she can get, his attention for the winter list that she has. So there's this one book that is there called The Late Bloomer, and it's a memoir of a 78-year-old man who falls in love with a woman at 78, marries her, and then she dies of cancer. She just begins to tell this, and AJ Fikry puts his head down on the table and says, "No, stop. No, I am not going to take this book, right? This book is not meant for me, and I don't like it at all." And she's trying so hard to get through to him. And she finally asks him, "What are the kind of books that you like?" And this is his response. And I want to read it from the book because it will give you an idea of the character of AJ Fikry. "Mr. Fikry, please just tell me what you like." "Like," he repeats with distaste. "How about I tell you what I don't like? I do not like postmodernism, post-apocalyptic settings, post-mortem narrations, or magic realism. I rarely respond to supposedly clever formal devices, multiple fonts, pictures when there shouldn't be, basically gimmicks of any kind. I find literary fiction about the Holocaust or any other major world tragedy to be distasteful. Non-fiction only, please. I do not like genre mashups." Okay, the literary device literary detective novels or literary fantasy. Literary should be literary, and genre should be genre. And crossbreeding rarely results in anything satisfying. I do not like children's books, especially ones with orphans, and I prefer not to clutter my shelves with young adult. I do not like anything over 400 pages or under 150 pages. I am repulsed by ghost-written novels, by reality television stars, celebrity picture books, sports memoirs, movie tie-in editions, novelty items, and I imagine this goes without saying, vampires. I rarely stock debut, chick lit, poetry, or translations. I would prefer not to stock series, but the demands of my pocket require me to. For your part, you needn't tell me about the next big series until it's on the New York Times bestseller list. And above all, Miss Lohman, I find slim literary memoirs about little old men whose little old wives died from cancer to be absolutely intolerable. No matter how well written the sales rep claims they are, no matter how many copies you promise I will sell on Mother's Day. So there you are. That's AJ Fikry for you. So she gives up, she leaves, she calls her boss from there, and Amelia says, I don't think I'm going to be able to sell anything to Island Books. AJ Fikry shuts shop. He's generally just pushing people out of the store when it's time to close. He lives in the store, he lives in the attic. Like always, like every day, he climbs up the stairs, he goes to his kitchen, opens the freezer, takes out a ready-to-eat meal of vindaloo, puts it in the microwave, and sits down to wait for it to get ready. Then he decides that he needs to do something strenuous. He wants to feel physically tired, so he goes down to the basement where the cartons are lying, the cartons in which the books come, and he takes a blade and starts slashing it to fold the cartons. And his mind goes back to Harvey, the sales rep that used to come from Nightly Publishing. Nobody told him that he had died. Of course, why would somebody? He's not friends with anybody. AJ is not friends with anybody. But he's so upset. He loved his conversations with Harvey. He had such good, intelligent conversations about books, about what should be written and what should not be written, about Edgar Allan Poe, and they had differing opinions on that. He enjoyed that. And he feels terrible that he meant so little to Harvey, but Harvey meant so much to him. And he'd never know that. He comes back upstairs to the kitchen and he takes his meal to eat, and he digs into the vindaloo, and one spoon is burning hot and the other spoon is frozen. This is a Papa Bear, Baby Bear kind of meal, and he's so mad he just flings it at the wall, and there's vindaloo all over the wall. And the good part of living alone is that you have to do your own cleaning up. But he just sits there and his mind goes back to Harvey. He thinks about this sales rep that came in today who looked like a dandelion, whatever her name was. He feels bad that he was really rude to her, and he probably shouldn't have. But, how was she to know? How was she to know that he was a widower who had lost his wife to cancer? And that was not a good book to pitch to him. Definitely not when his wife had just died. But how was she to know that? He feels really bad, gets himself a bottle of Merlot, pours that out, and then goes to a little box that is climate controlled and carefully takes out a book. It's Tamerlane by Poe. And it's one of those classic collectible ones, right? Which costs a lot of money. People don't know that. He found it in some, book, where they were selling old books. He just found it. Those guys didn't even know the value of it, but he picked it up, and he knows that this is going to get him at least $400,000 when he eventually sells and gets into retirement. So he takes it out and sits to read it. He goes through his bottle of Merlot. By the third glass, he has passed out, and he's passed out right there on the table. But at some point, he remembers Nick, or the ghost of Nick, waking him up and taking him to bed and putting him into bed and reminding him that he was really rude to that sales rep that was there today. And he just passes out in bed. The next day, he wakes up with a really bad headache, really, really bad headache. And he gets up and goes into the kitchen, and he remembers that he had flung that vindaloo, but but his kitchen looks spotlessly clean. Well, at least he's a neat drunk, right? He at least cleans up. He has no recollection of it, but at least he did that much. But he looks at the table and he doesn't see the book there. And he goes to where the vault where he had kept it in the room, and he can't find it there. And he's so upset, and he thinks, oh God, he's been robbed in the night. What happened? And he runs out of this house in his robe and runs all the way to the police station. And there's a very funny description where she says he looks like a malnourished superhero because he's running through the street and his robe is flapping behind him. And there he goes, and he meets Lambez, right? Now, he's met Lambez before. He met Lambez when Nick died in hospital. Lambez was there, and Lambez, the chief, was trying to get him to understand how the accident had happened. Now, Nick was in a car. She was driving an author somewhere, and she just took a bad turn. She had dropped the author off, and she was coming back. She was on the hills. She took a bad turn, and she went off the cliff into the ocean. And Lambez was sort of trying to question AJ Fikry. Was she suicidal of any kind, and all that. And Fikry is, the conversation is quite poignant, actually, because he's in a state of shock, but everything is related to books. And he keeps talking to Lambez at that time and tells him that, this is like a bad novel. This is like a scene, this is such a scene from where the wife dies and the husband is in hospital. And this ill-supporting character, which is the policeman, is there as well. And, and he asked Lambez, do you read? And he said, no, I don't. I read detective novels. I've read some, but he said, I do know a short story, the Lamb to Slaughter. And he says, I read that one. And they both discuss as to, who's right and who's wrong. And like a true detective, Lambez says, it's a great story, but I don't know how somebody who had taken a leg of beef, and this fellow corrects him, AJ Fikry corrects him and says, lamb. He says, yes, but it wasn't frozen. It was frozen. How can you cook that? And how can you feed it to people? And, things like that. And they have a strange conversation just when Nick has died. So here he is, and he sees this man again in the police station. AJ Fikry is there talking about a book that he's lost. And he asks him, if it's valued so much, why was it in your house? Right? But anyway, there we are. It's, he tells him that, there's never a theft in Alice Island. Right? It's just a small little island. It may happen, one or two occasionally may happen when it's tourist season, but it's now October and there is no theft. But anyway, so when he is describing this, when AJ Fikry is describing all that's happening to Lambez about the book and how it's lost, at some point he just stops and he doesn't speak and his eyes are glassy and it's almost like he has a seizure. And Lambez sort of, when he comes to, Lambez tells him, did you just have a seizure? And he says, it's something that I've had as a child, and it's called an absence seizure. And, the police chief is worried. He tells him, I think you should go and see a doctor. And AJ Fikry does go and see a doctor. And the doctor asks him, so how are you doing, Mr. Fikry? He said, describe your lifestyle to me. And he tells him, well, I'm a widower. I have not gone out since my wife has died. I eat ready meals that are there, TV food that is there. And I don't call myself an alcoholic, but I do drink enough till I pass out. And the doctor tells him, well, I think you should, if you want to die, if you want to commit suicide, there are easier ways to do it. But let's start by getting you to do some exercise. Doing that, he calls, AJ Fikry decides that, he should get his life together. He goes back and the next day onwards, he begins to run. He's been a good runner when he was in Princeton, but he goes running. The problem with running is that when you leave the store, where do you keep your keys, right? There's no place to keep your keys. So you know what? He couldn't care less. Now even Timor Lane is gone, the most precious thing that he had. So what does it matter? He just leaves the store open and he goes for a run. Okay. So, and also I must tell you that now that his retirement is gone, he has more time. He really has to make sure that his bookstore makes money. He replies emails. So books there's some sales that are happening. Business starts doing a little better. Now, the other reason why business starts doing better is because the whole town, the whole little island gets to know that there's been a robbery, and that rarely happens, right? So everybody comes to find out about what's happening about the robbery. Did they find the robber? And Fikry finds it strange that, and there's a beautiful line in the book which says that theft is acceptable social loss, but death is not. Because nobody comes to meet AJ Fikry when his wife dies, because he's a bit of an oddball, as you know. We also know that he's not white American, so he's, he does have a South Asian parentage. So, and he's so odd. I mean, who comes back from Princeton and who starts a bookstore? He doesn't even belong to Alice Island. So nobody comes. But when there is this theft, everybody seems to come and everybody seems to have an opinion. And well, you know what? Because they're in the bookstore, they also buy books, so which is good. Now, Fikry is out for a run and he comes back one day from his run and he sees the front door open. And he thinks, did I not shut the door behind me? I mean, he just closes the door. It's not locked, but he does close the door. And he thinks maybe he didn't. But he goes in, he checks the cash register, nothing has been touched. He looks around, the books seem all there. Heaven knows, maybe he made a mistake. And he's just climbing up the stairs to go to his apartment when he hears a strange sound. And he comes down and he goes through the store. And there, in the children's section, is a baby. There is a little toddler. And now AJ Fikry doesn't have a baby. He doesn't have children. So he doesn't know how old this baby is. 1, 2, 3, maybe, but it's just a little baby. And he just looks at her and says, and who in heaven's name are you? And the little one with curly hair and a dark skin says, Maya. And he says, oh gosh, and how old are you? And she puts her finger up and shows 2. And he doesn't know what to do. He looks around, there's nobody around. Next to her lies a little doll, Elmo, and there is a note in the doll. And I want to read that note out to you as well, right? And the note says, to the owner of this bookstore, this is Maya. She's 25 months old. She is very smart, exceptionally verbal for her age, and a sweet, good girl. I want her to grow up to be a reader. I want her to grow up in a place with books and among people who care about those kind of things. I love her very much, but I can no longer take care of her. The father cannot be in her life, and I do not have a family that can help. I am desperate. Yours, Maya's mother. AJ doesn't know what in heaven's name, what is he supposed to do now? There is a baby here. So of course he takes the baby to the police station. Lambert is there again. And Lambert tells him, you know what, we'll search for where the mother is and where the father is. But, there's nobody to take care. It's Friday evening. There's nobody to take care of the baby. And, and AJ says, okay, I'll keep her for the night. I mean, how hard must it be to take care of a baby? Now we all know what having a toddler means. So he goes crazy. He doesn't know what to do. How does he feed her? What does he feed her? He cannot give her that Vindaloo dinner, right? So he calls up Ismay, his sister-in-law, and she comes over with some food and, and helps him with, cleaning up the baby. And that night, AJ gives the baby a bath. He reads to her. He sings to her because she demands it. Okay. He wouldn't have sung to her. Otherwise, he hasn't sung since Princeton. But she demands that he sings, and he sings for her. And they sort of seem to have a good time. Now, Lambert comes back and tells him that she has to be put into a foster home. Now, AJ doesn't want to keep her. Of course, he doesn't want children, but how would somebody, how would he know which home she's going to, right? Would they take care of her? Would they know that she likes to be sung to when she's having a bath? And in all that, eventually, AJ cannot give her up. He also feels, and he keeps telling Lambert that, the mother wanted her to grow up in a bookstore. So he feels that he should keep her. But the fact is that he just, there is just this bond that has been built between this grumpy old man and the sweet little baby, and he adopts her. Now, he adopts her, and Lambase tells him that, okay, you have adopted her. She officially becomes Maya Fikry, but she must have a middle name, right? And there must be a party. So he says, no, but there's no christening. There's no reason to have a party. So Lambase thinks about it and says, well, there can be a non-christening party. We should introduce her to the community. And they have a party. There are Elmo plates that are there. Lambase helps AJ set up this party. Her name officially is Maya Tamerlane Fikry. Okay, and they have a wonderful party. Lambase is the godfather. Ismay becomes the godmother. And at that party, AJ just looks at that little one, and he has never felt this much love in his life. Okay, so now Maya grows up in the bookstore. She just loves books. She lives in a bookstore. So, needless to say, she just loves books. And she's always among them. She loves the smell of books. And little Maya draws her reviews of books. So when she draws an apple, it means she likes the smell of that book. And when if she draws cheese, it means that book is ripe. And if she draws a self-portrait, it's because she likes the images in that book. Okay, so life goes on. Maya joins, is put into school. Also, I want to tell you that all the women come to the bookstore because, first of all, they don't believe that AJ is going to be able to take care of a baby, not that grumpy old man. So they come to see what's happening. Now, when they come to see what's happening, they also buy more magazines. So AJ is now keeping a lot of women's magazines in the bookstore. So this baby is good for business. The women, of course, then see how much AJ loves that baby. And they come in with all kinds of gifts, so strollers and cots and toys and, and AJ and the baby and the community are just enjoying this whole thing that's happening around Maya. So Maya starts school. She gets red round glasses that are there, and she also gets red big bumps on her face. She has got chicken pox. And AJ, like any parent, feels terrible and blames himself for listening to some woman who told him not to give her the chicken pox vaccine, but she has chicken pox. So he spends the entire night taking care of little Maya. And while he's, taking care of her, he just goes down to pick up a book so he can read while he's sort of, patting her to sleep. And in the dark, he picks up a book, and it's about a 78-year-old man who has got married and whose wife dies of cancer. And at the end of the book, he has tears running down his face. And out of the book falls the card, Amelia's card. And then he remembers why this sounds so familiar. So he promptly picks up the phone and he calls her and tells her that he actually liked the book and he apologizes for his bad behavior. And she tells him, that's true. I told you it was a good book and you didn't believe me at that time. And he tells her that sometimes books don't find us till the time is right. And then he promises to order a carton. And he tells her that the next time you're here, why don't I take you out to dinner to make up for it? And he takes her to a restaurant on the island called Peckhart, okay, which is the whaling ship in Moby Dick, for anybody who's read Moby Dick. And they have such a wonderful time. It's a conversation about, they have conversations about books. It ultimately becomes about, in what restaurant based on a novel would you like to dine in? Now, this is how the date is going, all right? And Amelia comes up with a book where they would eventually be dining and having Soviet prison bread and soup. And AJ would like the Turkish delights in Narnia. So it's a wonderful evening, but it ends by her saying that she is engaged. And, it saddens his heart because he's begin to take a liking to her. He reads all the books that she recommends to him. He makes copious notes and sends her an email about every book that is read. Finally, it comes to the last book and he doesn't want to send her the review because then the conversation just ends, right? But she calls him and he gives his recommendation. And finally, she tells him to watch a TV series that she enjoys. So he says, maybe we don't have to wait till summer and we can meet otherwise. But anyway, so, life goes on. Maya starts dance class. He's just such a wonderful father. He goes and accompanies her to the dance class. He helps the dance class. He creates all the props for them when things need to be done, things like that. And then, one day he gets a call from from Amelia's fiance to say that she's met with an accident and she's broken her leg. He sends her a note. And, she's been constantly asking him, have you seen the series that I spoke about? And he's been avoiding it. And he keeps saying, we'll see. We'll talk when we meet next. So she really doesn't know whether he has or not, but actually he has. And in that little note, he quotes the series that is there. Eventually, they have a Skype call. He's so happy to see her face, and in that call, he tells her that it was her boyfriend who called. And she says, no, he's no longer my boyfriend. We broke up. And he puts the phone down and finds a way. How in heaven's name can he get to Providence where she is? So he's to find an excuse to go there. So he looks it up on Google, finds that there's a garden there, and decides that he must take little Maya to the garden. And Lambert looks at him and says, really, in the winter? Who goes to the garden in the winter? And he says, no, Maya just loves gardens. So anyway, they make that trip and they go to the garden, and the garden is closed because it is winter. He feels like such a terrible parent because he has used his child for something that he wanted to do. But in any case, Lambert finally tells him, just go meet Amelia. I'll take care of the little one. The little one, Maya and Lambert have already had a conversation where Maya has told him about a story about a little child who hides in the museum. And Lambert has a very adult conversation with her as to how it's not such a good thing, right? Children must not stay in the museum because it's very dangerous. And here's what the police have to say about it. So he takes her to the museum. Whereas AJ Fikry goes to meet with Amelia. They have a wonderful meal at her place. He takes her a bag full of books and wine and sunflowers, which he doesn't give her because he just thinks it's too much. So before he gets into the house, he throws the sunflowers away. But they have a great time, and they eventually, sort of sleep together. Okay. Then they talk about, the relationship flourishes, but how are they ever going to get together, right? She has a job. She has a traveling job. There's no way she can stay in Alice Island. There was so much of traveling that, she'll have to take a ferry, and then, and then it's just so difficult. A commute to Afghanistan would probably be easier rather than the commute from Alice Island to anywhere. Now, everything seems to be going well. He's happy. She's happy. Maya loves Amelia. Nightly Business Publishing is so happy because, you know what? Island Books is buying a lot of books. So it doesn't matter what it takes for books to be sold, but they're doing very, very well. And finally, they have a reading in the bookstore of the last memoir, the book that Amelia had first recommended to AJ, and AJ decides that he's going to propose. And he takes little Maya to buy the ring. And it's very sweet. They both choose different rings, but eventually they pick a very eclectic, ring, because that typically would be something that Amelia would love. And that he would propose to her on that night, which he does. He sort of, it's a strange proposal. It truly being themselves, he's not romantic at all. But eventually he tells her that, will you marry me? Because all I can promise you is books, great conversations, and all my heart. And she, of course, says yes. The wedding happens a year later. And the wedding is interesting. Ismay is coming for the wedding. Now, Ismay, just to remind you all, is Nick's AJ's sister-in-law, Nick's sister. And the wedding does something for her. She just, I don't know if it was just seeing her sister's husband marry again, or see two people so much in love, because she and Daniel have a very difficult relationship. She knows that Daniel sleeps around with other women. He's never at home. He's always flirting with other women. It just takes a toll on her. And actually, during the wedding, she walks out she goes by the seaside, takes off his shoes, and is walking into the water when the police inspector, Lambert, actually sees her and calls her back. He doesn't know that she actually was thinking about just walking into the water, because she thinks of Maya and Maya's mother, who had actually committed suicide by walking into the ocean. So, so she thinks of that, but eventually it doesn't happen that night. Daniel, of course, is there at the wedding, and he's flirting with other women, and she's so mad with him. When Ismay and Daniel are going back to home on the road, she confronts him, and with all that has happened in their lives, and he says no, and he's going to be a good father. She's had so many miscarriages, and she's now pregnant again, and he says no, I will be a good father. And but she doesn't believe him because she knows that that's not going to happen. But they meet with an accident. He dies, Daniel dies, she survives, and eventually then we come to, and very quickly end here, we come to part 2, where Maya is now a teenager. She's a creative writer. The story is when she's about 14 years old. She's taking part in a creative writing contest where she has to write about a person you wish you knew better. And Maya's struggling with it. She's a teenager. She's mad with her father. She's she fights with Amelia. She's got all her teenage angst that's there. And everybody's trying to help her. So she thinks she could write about her father, but she doesn't know enough about her father. Then maybe her mother, AJ Fikry suggests, why don't you write about Daniel? She and Daniel were very close as children. But eventually she writes a piece called A Trip to the Beach, which is about her mother. And that wins the 3rd prize. And when they're in the car and driving back, she thinks that AJ is not happy that she got the 3rd prize, but AJ is so proud of her. And AJ tells her that, there are some things that you could change about that, about the way you wrote some things. But he said, what I read was written by a writer, and he shakes her hand. And Maya already has it in her head, this line, which her next piece will begin with, which says, the day my father shook my hand, I knew I was a writer. And as the story goes on, Lambe starts a book club. He asked AJ to set up a date with him and Ismay. That happens. They have a wonderful date. And in Ismay's house, they sleep together. Ismay the next morning goes down to make breakfast for him. And like a good policeman, he sort of, just snooping around the house, the room, and he opens her closet and he finds a little bag with Maya's name on it. And inside the bag is Tamar Lane. Okay. Anyway, so to end the story, Lambe loves books. Every time he goes to the bookstore, AJ has suggested books for him. So he starts a book club for his police force. Eventually, towards the end of the story, AJ is discovered with cancer and he passes away. But what happens to the bookstore? Why was Tamar Lane in Ismay's house? What eventually happens to Amelia and Maya? Well, you'll have to read the book to find out. So I don't want to give you any spoilers on that. But before I end, I just want to share, and let me see if I can do this. I just want to tell you a little bit about how she actually writes the book. This is, if you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Opening up.
Yes.
You started screen sharing, but it's not open. Now it's open. Yes.
There. Okay. So this is Gabrielle Zevin, who is the author of the book. She's part Korean, part American Jew. Her mother is Korean, and her father is American Jew. And she's written multiple books, a lot of books for young adults. And this one, she won some awards for. It's now been made into a movie. There you are. It's now been made into a movie, which you can find supposedly on Prime Video and on Amazon Prime and on Apple TV, but I haven't found it as yet, so I don't know if it's a region thing. But I want to end by telling you that she starts. The interesting thing about the book is that every chapter she starts by writing a little bit. AJ Fikry writes a little bit about a short story that he loves. So here it is, right? So he writes Lamb to Slaughter. And the reason he writes Lamb to Slaughter is because he and Lambe have that conversation. Then every book, The Diamond is Big as the Ritz, The Luck of Roaring Camp. And he puts the year and the author that is there. And it's a little bit about the book. It's like being in a bookstore and somebody writes a recommendation about the book, right? And what they feel about it. So she does that. And so beautifully done, because there's so much about the story in that. Every little note that AJ Fikry writes about each one of these chapters is a note that he writes to Maya. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to open it up for discussion.
Excellent, excellent. And you kept it hanging there so others should read it.
I tried very hard.
I read it about a year back and enjoyed it. I wish I'd suggested it earlier. Very good. There's a lot of new people here also today.
Sunita, very well told, very well narrated. I loved your storytelling skills.
Thank you, Moini.
Niru.
Yes, sir.
Let's get Niru to start the conversation going.
Kaveri, you need to unmute.
I haven't read the book really. I just came because Sunita had sent me the link and I love listening to Sunita, of course. So I need to read the book to start something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Satish, do come regularly and listen.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Come on, Kaveri, you were saying something.
Yeah. Sunita, it's just such a pleasure listening to you because you are so animated and so vital. You just don't need anything on the screen other than your face and your voice. It's a very interesting book that you described. I'm still trying to figure out exactly, the significance of various parts of it and how it came together. It's very interesting.
It really is quite... Sorry, go ahead.
That reference to Poe and Tamerlane, why did he put that in? In that poem, if I remember, it's about how Tamerlane regrets that he gave up an early love that he had for the sake of the empire that he wanted to build. And on his deathbed, he remembers that. That's one thing in the poem. I wonder why he put that in. So interesting. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So many different pieces which come together. There has to be some, connection between all of those.
Yes, and it's just I can't reveal that because that's the little part of the suspense that is there in the book. So I can't reveal that. But it is so interestingly written, and if you listen to her her interviews on Gabrielle's interviews, she talks a lot about publishing because she is in that business as well and as an author, and she feels so much about how bookstores represent the good in a community. And she wanted to write about that. About the difference that books make in people's lives. And every character, she describes her characters really based on what they read. If you see, it's very little about how they look or who they are, but it's really about what they read. And that is the big thing, right? That if you don't read, then, and even that, I think it's AJ in the book who says that if you say you're not a reader, it's just because you haven't found the right book as yet. So about how it's all about reading and, and the difference it makes to your lives. And it's very true. I think in each one of their lives, books play such an important part, whether it's Maya's life or Amelia's or Lambe's, who eventually becomes a reader and starts his own book club.
Latika wanted to know how the ending is, etc. I don't think we should tell her that. Let her read the story.
Not how the ending is, but she was asking, how do we know that Maya's mother committed suicide? So is that...
It is there in the book. It is there in the book that Maya's mother commits suicide. Actually, the next day after they find Maya, and I've obviously missed that part. The next day after they find Maya, a body washes up on the shore of a young woman who has had almost 2-year-old baby. She's from Harvard, and there's no news of the father. So we do know that Maya's mother has committed suicide. Yes.
But that is such an interesting perspective, what you're telling us, Sunita, that all the characters are seen in terms of their readership and their relationship with books. Very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think I've come across that before.
Wispy, you have something to say?
Yes, I think exactly what Moini said, it struck me that what an unusual way to introduce or build up your characters, to link them with their reading. And I think the enthusiasm with which Sunita's related everything is something you can't resist, you know. It gives you the impetus to pick up the book and read it. So thank you.
Can everyone hear Wispy clearly? I can't.
Little louder, Wispy. We could hear
Wispy, a
you
little
too well.
closer to the mic, please.
I'll do that. Yeah. I began by saying I agreed with what Mohini said, that this is really an unusual way to build your characters, you know, to link them with the type of books you read, which is really unusual. So that would make it interesting to read and find out for oneself. The other point I raised was that Sunita's enthusiasm of the way she seemed to be so taken by this book that it was infectious, you know, that I think it prompts all of us who've not read it to go look for the book and read it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yes, indeed. I want to read it too.
Sheena has finished half of the book already.
Not half, but quarter.
Okay.
So I find it quite funny, Sunita. It's really a very funny book, and especially those two customers who came to the shop, and that old lady, Mrs. Cumberbatch. She buys a book thief, and then she comes back and she's read the book and she returns it. And she says, you know, Mr. AJ, I don't like this book, and you should not be selling books like this. This is narrated by death and all that. And she's read the book because the spine is broken. And poor fellow, he takes it back, he gives her a refund, and he's thinking to himself, but I can't sell this book again to anybody. So it shows you what a nice guy he is. I mean, being grumpy and all that, he's a nice guy. Yeah. And it's a small town bookshop in Massachusetts, and it's really nice. Yeah. So yeah, it was a bit of a spoiler for me to find that Tamerlane landed in Ismay's purse or whatever. But anyway, she probably.
But I didn't tell you why. You have to read it to find how did it get there.
She didn't steal it. Okay, she must have gotten stolen it. Anyway. Anyway, yeah, I will read it. Yeah, I find Maya very precocious for a 2-year-old. And she turns around and obviously she becomes a very precocious young woman. Yeah. And AJ's name is actually Ajay. We find out somewhere. Yes. Somebody wrote him a note. So his name is Ajay. And that's it. I haven't progressed much, but it's wonderful. I told you last week also, I like the way you can just keep talking on a subject without any props. I hope I get there one day. Yeah, this is very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I noticed when you showed the film poster that Kunal Nair is the guy who acts AJ Fikry. So Raj from
Yeah, but you're right. This movie is not available on Prime. At least it's not available here.
There's someone
I
called
don't have
Niru.
Apple TV subscription. It expired. So
Niru, we can't see you. Can you say a few words? Can
I think Niru finished saying her bit by saying she hadn't read the book.
Mukul is there, Latika is there.
Okay.
Priyana, Kapila.
Okay.
So many people. Sanjay is there somewhere. I lost him now.
Leslie Pereira, Friana, I'm going to ask you to say something. How did you guys like the startup? Friana did it. Friana,
I love
Latika's mic is not working. Okay.
Satish, I loved it. I love the way in which, the curtains part with the quill and the book club. I think it's lovely.
Yeah.
Friana.
Yay, Friana. 3 cheers for you.
3 cheers for you, Friana.
Thank you. I just tried a little bit with PowerPoint as much as I could, but I'm glad it worked out. Regarding today's session, I think Sunita has kept me engaged throughout. I really enjoyed listening to her today because, it felt like as if she herself is the author and she's excited about telling her own book and she's ready to, tell everybody, this is what happens in the book. And, that kind of excitement really gets you.
Is infectious.
Yeah, it's infectious. The book itself, like the second she starts and says, there's this two people who leave everything, go to an island and open a bookstore. I'm like, that is what I want to do, like a couple of years down the line. Like what am I doing with life? Like, just open a bookstore, enjoy some books, literature, and just be in my own world, So the first line itself got me into the book and be like, okay, I need to read this book. This person sounds like me, do away with people, just read my book on an island and, I'm sorted. But,
And Latika also on an island. So there's someone from USA here. He hasn't said a word. There's only one guy from USA and he hasn't said a word. We would like him to tell us what he thinks about it.
No, it's a wonderful story, and I, like others have commented, I love the fact that that stories and authors and books have been used as an adjective to describe people. I think that's a great that's a wonderful way to even introduce people to each other. I think when we meet each other sometimes and are introducing friends to each other. I want to say when the story started, I almost thought this is going to be some magical realism or something. There's some secret elves in the bookshop who are cleaning up the Vindaloo and putting the book back in its place. And I was wondering where it was going when the little baby appeared there. But I guess none of that happened. So it was just my imagination. But yeah.
So I just thank you, Chetan. I just want to read for you all just this. So where AJ Fikry writes about each of these short stories. And there's one, since we're talking about how they describe people by books. So this is the one which is the short story called A Good Man is Hard to Find, a 1953 one by Flannery O'Connor. And this is what is written here. Family trip goes awry. That is Amelia's favorite. She seems so sweet on the surface, no? Amy and I do not always have exactly the same taste in things, but this I like. When she told me it was her favorite, it suggested to me strange and wonderful things about her character that I had not guessed, dark places that I might like to visit. People tell boring lies about politics, God, and love. You know everything you need to know about a person, from the answer to the question, what is your favorite book?
Yeah, very true. Very, very true.
Yeah.
Okay, who else would like to put in the...
I am so prepared to answer Gautam's questions. I mean, I'm just sitting here at the edge of my seat thinking what is going to come from him. That I've got pages, holding pages and stuff like that, Gautam.
Okay, one is that I think Sunita is a better publisher's salesperson than Amelia. Second thing, I did not know that having 3 glasses of Merlot, you can pass out. I'll be more careful in future. The third thing is I agree with Fikry that books should not be more than 400 pages. So I'm very curious. Is this book, how many pages is it? I'm going to buy it otherwise.
Hold on, I will tell you. 306.
Okay, that will work for me.
That will work for you.
All right.
Well done.
It's not very long because I finished 25% just this morning. So it's not very long.
Okay, and the lastly is that you left us in the middle. You cleverly, you give such extreme details, and I was saying this person is going to give me the entire story. I don't have to buy the book. And then you suddenly stop and tell me that I have to buy the book for the second part, which is very unfair. So the second part is what? Another 100 pages?
No, the second part is much smaller. But
okay.
That's the part that I'm not telling you and you have to read it. Gautam, I'm trying very hard. This is new for me, not to tell the entire story. So
no, we don't want spoilers, Gautam.
See?
You remember what happened to that book? What was the name of that book? I forget the name of that book. Anjali Patwardhan presented that book.
The one about the crawdads.
The crawdads sing, where she gave the whole story away and spoiled it for so many people, that some people haven't come back. That's the thing.
Okay.
Lastly, I just the writing style. The author is a regular reviewer and a critic and all that. Is the style apart from the the imagery of, or as Chetan said about the adjectives, using the person who reads what type of books and all that and describes a person's personality, is the writing style so original? Is it forthright, or is it something quirky?
I wouldn't say it's quirky, and Sheena, please add to it. I didn't find it quirky, but I liked her. There's a lot of humor, in the incidents that happen. There's not much of a story. It's a regular story. You can almost predict what's going to happen, but just the way she brings regular, instances that happen in life, and her sense of humor, I think, is what makes it very endearing. So
yeah, it is funny in parts.
Yeah.
Especially, when she starts off with Amelia, what's her name? Amelia Lomas?
Amelia, yeah.
Amelia. And, and Amelia leaves a bookshop. I knew that these two are going to fall in love, and they did. It was very predictable. And as you said, it did happen later. So, I don't think his wife died of cancer. She was pregnant. His wife didn't die of cancer.
His wife died in a motor accident.
In a motor accident.
In a motor accident, yes.
She was 2 months pregnant at the time.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Because there are too many people having cancer in this book. So maybe you got mixed up.
Yeah. She dies in the road accident.
She died in a road accident. People blamed him that why did he not drive the author himself? Why did he leave it to her to drive that author back and all that? But I guess what has to happen will happen eventually. But I'm looking forward to finishing it, maybe by tomorrow.
Anyone else would like to say something about the take?
Yeah, it was a very well expressed, this whole book. And I felt as if I was actually watching a movie or something. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. And the thing is that it reminded me of another book, and a very old one. I think we've all read it ages back, Silas Marner, where all his gold is stolen. He's a miser and all his gold is stolen. And instead he finds a little baby on his doorstep. He takes it in, and somehow I was reminded of course, the whole thing is different. The whole age, the era, everything else, the story, everything is different. But how that little baby changed his whole life. He
Absolutely
brought her
right. Absolutely, it's almost it's almost similar.
Yeah.
Yes. Would Kapila like to say something?
I just wanted to ask, of course, the book seems got everything in it, romance, some kind of mystery, some kind of bookstore, book club things and all. So it's quite a mix-up of a lot of things and should be easy to read. But what I wanted to know, why did they bring in that thing that he was reading a book and the book got lost in the thing? And then what was that about? Does it get revealed in the second part, or is that a thing that you'd like to leave it as it is?
Yes, it's a spoiler.
Gets revealed in part. This book ties up at the end. Everything gets tied up and leaves you happy and warm and and everything. But yes, it is there.
Yeah, I think you made it even easier and interesting and curious enough to read it again. Definitely.
It's been very hard.
Thank you for
Leslie, what about you? I want a take. And after that, Dr. Bharucha. Leslie Pereira and Dr. Bharucha. Leslie is not coming on. Come on, doctor. You take over.
He's there. You need to unmute, Dr. Bharucha.
Hi.
Hi.
I love the way the story was narrated. And also it was in a way told in a very visual way. I could virtually be in the bookshop and smell the bookshop and play with the baby and whatever, which I think was very nice. I never have time to read the book, so I wish I knew the rest of it. Thank you.
Dr. Parucha,
Thank
you'll have to make time to read it.
I
if you
wish
want to know
I
the
wish there
rest
was
of
a
it.
time machine that could make time.
Can you send us a link for it? That will be nice if anybody has
Leslie?
the
Yeah.
ebook.
So, very well reviewed the book. And like Chetan had said, even I thought that there is some kind of a ghost or something when he cleans the kitchen and the baby is found, but it was nothing of that kind. But very nicely reviewed and seems very interesting.
Can't hear you, Leslie.
Unfortunately, my something is wrong with my internet. There are many parts which I could not hear very well. So you have to excuse me for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunita, I just wanted to point out that the title of the book, not the title of the chapters, but the title of the book, I thought she borrowed it from the love songs of J. Alfred Prufrock. You know, that's what I think. That's the love songs of J. Alfred Prufrock by Eliot. Because this is the life story. What is it? The storied life of AJ Fikry.
The storied life. I think the storied life is a much more, what shall we say, different and out of the way and interesting adjective than Eliot has. I mean, Eliot says just love songs, but this is the
I'm just
storied
talking
life.
about the title. The love song, the storied life, and AJ and J. Alfred. So, you know, interchange the alphabet.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think Mukul wants to say something.
Yes, Mukul is there. Mukul, let's see you and hear you.
No, yes, come on. Mo, take over now.
Okay, now I
Yeah,
think she
I
is
am
unmuted.
here, but I joined very late because I had some guests, so I don't know the story. I've just been listening as a result to the something after 7:10. So I really don't know.
Okay.
Okay, before you wrap up, Moini, may I please read just the last bit that he writes, because I think that is lovely as well in the book, right? It's right to the end, and there are no spoilers in this, right? So he says, "It's so simple, Maya. I have figured it all out. The words you can't find, you borrow. We read to know that we are not alone. We read because we are alone. We read and we are not alone. We are not alone. My life in these books, read these and know my heart. We are not quite novels. We are not quite short stories. In the end, we are collected works."
Nice.
Yeah, right, exactly
Yeah.
right.
Very nice.
Very
nice.
neat. Yes.
Okay, I think
Okay,
it's time to
so-
wind up.
Yes, so Sunita, this has been clearly a very, very popular presentation. Everyone has enjoyed it. Thank you so much for doing such a good job of it. Thank you, Satish, for suggesting the book. That's how Sunita came to it. So
Okay.
lovely all round. Thank you everyone who came, who read the book, who plans now to read the book, and everyone who made a comment. Thank you very much. Our next session is on the 19th of March, and we have a classic now, A Doll's House by Ibsen, which I'm going to present. I just thought that we're having so many modern examples of literature that there should be a classic thrown in between. Therefore, I chose this one. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thereafter, on the 2nd of April, we have Jerry Pinto coming himself to talk about his new book, The Education of Yuri. I've just got the book, and from the first line, it just draws you in. Such a pleasant book to read. Absolutely lovely. So we have time. I totally recommend that you acquire the book in some way. I mean, buy it, borrow it, read it from the library, whatever.
Steal it.
And yeah, so it's a lovely book. And Jerry Pinto himself will be there. That always makes it so special. And that's it. Thereafter, after Jerry Pinto, we have Uday Kulkarni, The Maratha Empire. Probably on the 9th of April, but that's not yet carved in stone.
Yeah,
he has to confirm it. And then we have Sunita back again on the 23rd of April with The Secret of Lifing Pagoda by Ruby Gupta. All right. And I think I have sent the calendar somewhere along the way, and I shall send it again now. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot. See you. Happy reading.
Thank you.
Priyana has her hand up.
Thank
Priyana,
you.
do you want to say something?
Yes, I would request everybody to if everybody has Instagram accounts, I would request them to please follow our page. It's up, it's running. I have just put in the first post today evening itself, and now that we have started, hopefully it will be regular posts and clips and snippets of everything we do here. So please, everybody, make sure that you follow the page, share it with all your friends, colleagues, other people who are aware of the book club, and hopefully we'll have more people coming in.
And you'll have to teach us how to use the Instagram.
What is the Instagram handle?
It's the Book Club Pune.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how many of the people here do have Instagram accounts? Okay,
Yeah.
Sunita, Sheena,
Well, I
that's three.
have it, but I
Kaveri,
never
4.
I never
Okay.
use it.
We don't
No,
have.
but Kaveri now start
I
using
don't
it.
have.
Kapila, yes, excellent. So that's
I
5 or
will-
6.
I will
Super.
share the profile on the WhatsApp group as well. I'll share the link so that everybody can just click the link and just follow if they directly have the accounts themselves. So it will be easier for
Okay.
everyone. And
And
you can
those
share
of us
that
who-
link with others.
Those of us who don't have it should get it. Okay, thank you very much, Priyana.
All the
Thank you,
best.
Sunita. Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good night.
Bye-bye.